Hi there. Welcome to our newest session. This is Careers in Digital Transformation. And I'm Roshana Babu, and I run a boutique talent consulting firm. I've got about 20 years' experience in talent acquisition and advising. Worked very closely with a bunch of Silicon Valley media companies, as well as within gaming, technology, wearables, and pretty much advising on human capital strategies. So, this session, we're going to talk about careers in digital transformation or careers in DX. So, let's do a deeper dive into what types of jobs there are in the new world of crypto, blockchain, and FinTech, and what types of education as well as experience you need, and what employers exist in this space and what they're looking for. So joining us from our team here, we have Team Gemini is Leila Kouame. She's a software engineer with a passion for computer science and for building distributed systems. She has a bachelor's degree in computer science from the University of Virginia. We also have Devina Dhawan, and she's a staff cloud security engineer and cloud architect. Devina is a graduate of the University of Illinois at Chicago, College of Engineering, Computer Science, and she has a minor in math. We also have Cynthia Burke, who is the Associate Director of Global Compliance and Client Engagement. She's an undergrad and a grad degree in American history from Brown and a degree in IT project management from Villanova. Welcome all to the team.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So before we get started, Leila, can you kick us off and tell us a little bit about your company, what Gemini is all about?
Awesome. Sure. Happy to. Nice to meet everyone. So Cynthia, Devina, and I all work at a company called Gemini. So Gemini is a privately owned centralized crypto exchange, basically a fancy way of saying it's a place that you as a retail customer can buy and sell different cryptocurrencies and tokens that the firm offers. But in addition to our retail clientele, which would be people like me and you, we also service institutional clients. So we have more advanced investment strategies that those clients work with through us, and a bunch of other different products that I'm sure we'll get into later on today.
Awesome. Thank you for kicking us off, Leila. And now, in terms of looking at the coursework and what experience you felt prepared you most for your current role, why don't we get started with Devina? And if you can take it away, Devina, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Roshana mentioned, I have an undergrad in computer science and a minor in mathematics. And what my undergrad degree basically taught me was how to be a developer. But that's what I thought when I first graduated. I thought, oh, now I know a couple programming languages. I'm going to be a great security engineer, question mark. I was just super interested in security and had done some stuff outside of school, like capture the flag contest and taken one security class, but it wasn't really that great. And so I was pretty underprepared for what it meant to have a security career, or at least that's what I thought. One of the biggest things that an engineering degree teaches you is how to learn really, really hard things that you had no idea what it was since like the moment you walked into the room, and it was just a total concept to you. And to taking that to being almost an expert and being able to dive super deeply into that topic. So like for an example, I didn't know what bits were before taking a hardware class, but that's really weird, right? Like not knowing what a computer bit is and being a sophomore in college, but that's what a degree in computer science can teach you. So I think it's more about the computer science classes that you're taking and how analytical they are, and learning that logic that's going to help you a lot once you get any job in IT.
That's fantastic. And over to you, Cynthia. Why don't you do a deeper dive on your coursework and your experience that prepared you for your current role?
Well, absolutely nothing. I'm a trained historian, right? This was not the path that I saw myself going down in my 20s at all. But I was coming of age in Web 1.0, just no shame here. I've been doing this a long time. So I was completely self-taught. Started building computers for my friends and my family. Just like literally buying the parts and building the systems. No one, this was literally WebO. I was an engineer on AT&T WorldNet, the first commercial ISP. So nobody knew what we were doing. We were creating it as we were working, which I think is very, reminiscent of where we are now with Web3 and DeFi and what's coming up here. And the truth is no one is perfectly trained for this. So that shouldn't, I would encourage people not to consider that a barrier. If you have an aptitude for critical thinking, a desire to learn, and a real interest, I think that will take you far, kind of regardless of whether or not you have a traditional background.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Cynthia, for that insight. And on to you, Leila. Do you want to pitch in on your coursework and your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I would second everything that's been said in that it doesn't prepare you, and that I think the job of an engineer is really just to learn to know how to think and solve hard problems. Like, I don't think there's a day that I start work and I go, yeah, I know how to solve everything today, should be a piece of cake. Like, every single day is about solving a problem that no one else knows the answer to, and of which there's 1,000 different solutions. So you're using your experience and like the security of the degree of like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be able to do this, to build upon and just get better and better and better at doing that as your career goes on. And I'll just add, like, when I went to UVA, I wanted to be a chemical engineer. So I did not have the romance that Cynthia had with computers early on. I was really interested in water sanity, specifically how it affected parts of my family that still live in Africa. And so that was kind of my goal early on. But when I joined the chemical engineering program, there was only 30 people in my cohort. So ironically, I tell people that I didn't join computer science for the computers, but really for the people. I was like, oh, it's more diverse. There's more women in it. And there's more than, the amount of people that I can see in my eye span. So as a social person, I had to be in a major that kind of enabled that sort of teamwork and that kind of ability to be able to just have like interpersonal communication through our work. And I think like that's something that's huge as an engineer. Like, yes, you're solving problems, but being able to communicate what those problems are, both to technical and non-technical people, is really what kind of defines an okay engineering career to a really powerful and successful one.
That's fantastic. So moving on to advice that would make the most sense that we could give to young people in school, college, looking at a career in crypto and tech and digital transformation. What advice would that would make the most sense? And what did you take it off, Devina?
This is something I heard very recently, but the thing that makes you different is your superpower. And I heard that recently, and it just really connected with me, because if someone would have told me that when I was younger, it would have made a huge difference. I just thought I was like a super chatty person who really wasn't meant for tech. I was kind of forced into this life by my dad, who is very much like Cynthia in that he is a self-taught engineer, and he thought I had a mind for it. So he pushed me towards it, but I thought I wasn't good at it because I wasn't like that good of a developer in my classes and I wasn't getting all A's. So how was I going to be successful in this career? And what I found out is what Leila just mentioned, which is if you're a really good communicator, you can go very, very far as an engineer, and further than a lot of people will even give you credit for, especially at the beginning of your career. You'll just skyrocket. But the other thing that's really interesting is that once I graduated from college, I was able to find the things that made me me. And that includes art, that includes writing and reading, and the things that I'm really, really passionate about. Having pets, I have 4 pets in my house. And all of these things inspire me on a regular basis. And being inspired really helps you stay motivated in your position and helps you create new things out of just nowhere. Like, for example, Girls Who Code. Girls Who Code is an amazing program. So if you're young enough to participate in Girls Who Code, I definitely think that you should. It's a great community, hence the shirt, reppin'. But yeah, definitely find your superpower, the thing that you're good at, keep accelerating in that, because there's only one you, and your superpower is going to make someone's life amazing one day. So cherish it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that nugget, Devina. Moving on to you, Cynthia. What advice would you give young people in high school and college?
Identify problems that you can solve. There's so much that we have to tackle in DeFi and Web3, but there's so much to tackle. You know, I've focused in the past 10 years really on compliance and privacy specifically, because I see major issues there. And I want to be part of that solution. I want to help contribute to the solution to some of the challenges there. And that keeps me engaged, and that keeps me motivated in my job. And it allows me to not feel like it doesn't feel like work. It's something I would do whether or not I was being paid. I would be reading and I would be wanting to find solutions to these problems, whether or not I was being paid. And that to me is like, you know, the dream, right? When it doesn't feel like work, when it's just your passion. And there's so much here to choose from. And I would say, you know, you can't break anything if you keep it low stakes and you're experimenting and learning, and just start chipping away at problems that interest you.
That's fantastic. And moving on to you, Leila, what advice would you have?
Yeah, all great advice thus far. I'll give one a little more abstract. So this is one advice that I'm trying to take more for myself too, so I'll take it with a grain of salt. But I've been reading lately about this concept of flow theory. And basically what it is, you can Google it. It basically says that you should evaluate the things that you work on and the things that you like based on two things: how much it challenges you, and then how much skill you have for the thing. And how much you enjoy it is a factor of, are you in that sweet spot of both things, of the challenge and the skill? So the advice there would be, I think earlier in your career, you kind of have to, you're not really sure yet. And so you're hitting at the dart and you're like, oh, this isn't challenging, but I'm really good at it. But that maybe that's not satisfying enough for me, and I need to move the bullet point over a little bit. So I think the advice I would give is just be cognizant of that. When you're dissatisfied with something you're doing, is it just because it's hard and you need to overcome that mountain to get to a part where you're skillful enough at it that you enjoy it? Or is it something that is challenging and you will never enjoy? And therefore, like, is it worth spending that amount of time on? And I think sometimes, like, when we're in this sort of, a lot of life seems to have like a set plan. And I think the cool thing about the crypto world is, like, you could be, a 4-year graduate with, 4 years of experience, but be sitting next to someone who never went to college and is a genius software developer. So all the things that you do in life should be focused on, what level of challenge and skill am I ready for right now? And can I get it where I'm at? And if not, reassess. And if so, then push forward.
Awesome. Definitely very insightful. Thank you for that. And now moving on to any questions that we have from our audience. Let's see, while we are waiting for questions from the audience, talking a little bit more about blockchain specifically, I looking at all of your insights coming from Gemini and, working in crypto from a real world, what advice would you give if you're looking for some sort of education, especially around blockchain or any development? What's a good resource to get started? Devina, if you want to start, or Leila, one of you.
Either way, I'm happy to go. I think when you're getting started, and to be honest, like, I only really got into the crypto world around 2018. So, like, to me, that feels late, and people will say it's not, but 2021 is not late, is what I'm trying to say, or 2022, wherever we're at in this world right now. So it's never too late. I would say one of the things that I started to do early on is on Twitter Spaces. If you follow a few key people in crypto, they put on Twitter Spaces, which is just like a live event where you can kind of just listen in like a podcast, and people will join in and talk about whatever current event topic is happening in crypto. So I felt like that was pretty helpful because I could listen in about how the infrastructure bill could impact, crypto regulation. And then from there, have no idea what that means, but then go down a rabbit hole of researching the different parts that will help me understand like what's happening politically and socially when it comes to crypto. And from there, starting from a point of like, okay, I understand how government works. Let me see how this thing, is affected by it. It was much easier than going straight from the technical side of like, okay, what is blockchain? What is all these things? And instead I could start first of like, how is it impacting our world? And once I created a social sort of like figure of like what crypto is and how would it impact me, then I could go deeper down into the dirty details. So try to find places where people are talking about crypto. Twitter Spaces is a huge yes. Clubhouse, I know, is a good space as well. And then from there, do your research, meaning like if you're a reader, go on Wikipedia. If you're a listener, go on YouTube. There's tons of great people just providing and producing content. You could listen to 2 to 3 minutes on a topic and be able to explain it and have 4 different analogies for it. So that would be my advice.
That's fantastic. We have a couple of questions that are started to come in. So the first question here is, I'm interested in a career in this crypto space, but I'm in a totally different job path. How can I pivot into a career with a crypto company? Cynthia, do you want to get started on that?
Sure. Well, it depends on when you say career in crypto, that's a really broad space, right? So it is the idea, I would start by narrowing it down, right? Is the idea that you want to develop, then I would say start with some coding basics, like starting to learn, Java. If it is more on the sales side, I mean, there's so many different aspects to a career in crypto. You don't have to be making NFTs. You don't have to be, understanding how to actually execute trades. There's careers in crypto could be sales and marketing. Careers in crypto could be, if you're interested in privacy and data rights issues, I would just say try to narrow it down. It's like saying I'm interested in a career in the internet. Try to narrow it down. Again, don't get discouraged if you have a completely non-traditional background. I'd like to think that I am testament that shouldn't hold you back. And just start reading, just and try to make an impact in your area, whether it's writing an article, that even if you just published on your LinkedIn feed. And that was an idea that, Devina brought up that to me the other day. Just start entering the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Cynthia. Now I'm going to move on to Devina for the next question here. What has been your biggest challenge in your current role?
Yeah, sure. I think right off the bat, being a remote employee, I've been remote since pre-pandemic times. I've now been remote for 5 years. I was remote 3 years before the pandemic. And that's a huge challenge for me. Interpersonal things are things I hold really dear to my heart. So not being able to interact with other humans while working is a challenge. But I think from a technical perspective, solving technical challenges as a staff engineer. So for those that are not aware, the leveling, so in the pre-tech becomes an amazing thing, we had, like, if you were an engineer for a specific period of time, you just became a manager. And that's just like after 4 or 5 years in engineering, you just became a manager, and that's just what happened to you. But now it's amazing. You got engineer, you got senior engineer, then you got staff engineer, senior staff engineer, principal engineer. You could spend your entire 40-year career, 50-year career in engineering and never get bored. But when you start to solve, so you might be wondering, well, what is the difference between these engineerings, right? It's the scope. So like what you're impacting, the projects you're impacting, are they impacting just your team? Are they just impacting you? Are they impacting the wider security team that's 70 people? Are they impacting 100 people? Are they impacting the entire organization? Are they impacting all of the customers that you're working with? So what is the scope of what you're working on? And as you become a more seasoned engineer, you work on bigger and bigger scoped projects. And that can be daunting. You're literally changing how people are working every single day. And from a security perspective, you want to make sure you're coming in with positivity, you're making people feel safe and secure all the time and making people not feel anxious. So you don't ever want to come guns blazing into a situation where you have to create a new product and you start telling people no to things. But that can be really hard, figuring out solutions to problems that involve not saying no to someone. Security folks nowadays don't really like to do that. We like to enable as much as possible. So how do you do that when developers or operations folks are wanting to do something that's just born out of insecurity? So that can always be a challenge. But those are the fun days at work because you get to collaborate with so many people and figure out a solution to a problem that you didn't really have before.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you, Devina, for doing a deeper dive on that. We do have a next question that's come through from Denver. Are associate degrees enough for Web 3.0 careers? And I can take an initial spin on this while the rest of you can collect your thoughts. I think for me, especially being in talent acquisition and being in recruiting, what I've noticed is, with a lot of disruptive technologies, starting off with any online courses, either Udacity or, looking at anything else that's available online, that's the easiest way to dip your toe in the water, right? I think if you're looking at, say, blockchain, for an example, Udacity has a 4-month blockchain online course that you could do, after hours or, even work at your own pace. That's going to give a pretty insightful experience to see if, that blockchain developer is a career path that you might want to go. Cynthia, what would you like to add to that?
In addition, so my degree in IT project management, I formalized it with the degree. It's what I knew how to. I got the degree after this skill, just to be able to say, yes, hang my hat. This is something I know how to do. I am always going to be the one that's going to bang the drum of experience, of just like getting your hands dirty, getting in there, trying, just try whatever it is that you're interested in, like just getting in there and doing it. In addition to maybe formalizing it with a piece of paper. But I don't know that there's any degree that is required to enter this space. Of course, it's great. But, show your stuff, like build what you want to build, make your mark, show how, what your superpower is, what makes you unique. That's what's going to make you shine when you walk into any company.
That's excellent advice. Devina, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, and this is definitely something I wanted to say to the entire group of people who are listening to this. Web 3.0, cryptocurrency, it is at its infancy. And when we say, it's not too late to start learning about this stuff, it's certainly not too late to be educating yourself about something, regardless of whether or not you see a career in it. The reason is because your individual perspective will bring such a new light to cryptocurrency. You might think of something, an implementation of cryptocurrency that people have not thought of, or maybe you'll think of an implementation of blockchain that no one has ever thought of. And what a beautiful and unique thing that a mind is. So use yours to learn about blockchain, use yours to learn about what all of these new different technologies that are coming out are, and then implement something completely new and different that no one would have ever considered. And that's what I think is really, really interesting and cool. And the reason why I started learning about it, because I care much less about using it for financial purposes than I care about, how, well, what would be a cool utilization of NFTs that someone maybe hasn't considered yet? And what can I do with NFTs that, would make it really special for me, and combine it with physical art? And how do we do that? So I definitely think that anyone who's interested, just learn about it. And as you learn from different pieces of different things, like let's say you're a sociologist, you're learning from that, and you're just combining your education in a really interesting way. It's a great way to be creative.
Awesome. Leila, over to you.
Same question. I guess I hesitate to say no, because I'm sitting here with a 4-year bachelor's, and I'm not going to lie, having that does help. And when does it help? I think it helps in getting the interview, right? So all the things are correct that were said before, right? Like, it's all about how much time you spend and invest and really care about the topic, right? Like, that's important. But also, companies like Gemini aren't requiring that the engineers that they hire have a breadth of experience in crypto or blockchain. Like, I was in investment banking before I came to Gemini, and my only real knowledge in crypto before I joined was about the socio and political and economic factors that were influencing the space. So I say all that to say, no, I don't think you need anything, any type of particular degree, but I do think that having certain points on your resume does make you interviewable at these companies. So if you don't know someone that's kind of referring you, what's on paper is all recruiters have to kind of pin their eyes on. So if you don't have the degree, have the projects, right? If you don't have the projects, then have the degree, right? You have to kind of play this game of, am I creating a full picture as a candidate?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that insight. And in wrapping up, I think, I think it's fair to say that we are at the nascent stage of Web3 taking off. And, I can only imagine the next coming decades up ahead, what the influence of crypto and blockchain and FinTech and NFTs and how they're all going to intersect, and all of the roles that are going to open up, the job opportunities that are going to come up. I think it's a very exciting time to be here. So with that, I believe we are short on time. Thank you all for participating. And up next, we're going to be talking about crypto culture, community, and consciousness, and the revolution of what it's going to create. And that's going to be right after this break.